What's up, everybody? Derek Anderson, the DA, here with my box office breakdown, the scoreboard for the film industry. This is where we go over who's hot, who's not. We look at the winners, the losers. We also take a look at the week that just passed along with the week to come. So yeah, I got up early to do this because today is my birthday, and I want to thank everybody who gave me birthday shout outs. I've been celebrating it all weekend with family and friends, having a blast. So I wanted to get this thing knocked out real quick so I can get to the festivities. So yeah, here we are. We saw that, we talked about it from the box office prediction, The Lost City, and we knew that it was going to do decent numbers. We didn't know what it would do. And this article talks about it. We're going to go ahead and go through this. The weekend box office, The Lost City finds $31 million and reconnects with missing audiences. So this is from Box Office Pro. I'm not going to read through the whole article, but I'm going to touch on a couple of pieces of it. So it does say that Paramount's adventure comedy The Lost City debuted on top this weekend with an estimated $31 million, exceeding the openings of several similar comedies from the past few years. And it kind of gives a list of some of those comedies. Now we talked about what was it going to take for this film to be successful, and the number one thing we talked about: female audiences. It had to get the women to get back into the theaters, and that's exactly what it did. And it discusses it right here in this paragraph. It says the success of The Lost City was always going to come down to reconnecting with movie-going audiences, particularly older females, thus reviving date night programming at the movies. The film was able to accomplish just that with an opening weekend audience that was 56% female, right there, and then 47% age 35 plus. Now, I personally didn't care for this movie, but that doesn't mean it can't make money, and that didn't mean that a lot of other people won't love it. So I have my review. You can go ahead and check that out right above. But this movie was a hit with a lot of different audiences, a lot of different types of people. And it says there specifically women. It also says that it kind of did well on the western half of the U.S. So that means that a lot of folks on the west side of the world, or of the country, definitely was digging this movie. So I started to think, is this the sign that we've been looking for? I've been talking about this on a few box office breakdowns, like, when are the people going to start coming back to the theaters? Is it now? Is this the time? Now, this is a very excellent sign, and I'm going to tell you why. Theater going becomes a habit. You going to the theater, checking out the new releases. Oh, here's a trailer. This looks pretty good. Yeah, I think I'm gonna go see that. It kind of becomes a habit. You go to one movie, that leads to the second and then the third, and so on and so forth. Now that the pandemic is kind of settling down, people are kind of finished with the mandates and everything. Like when I went to the theaters to see this movie and a couple of others, no one's in the theaters wearing a mask. They recommend you wear it, but most people are just like, I don't need this. So you got a lot of folks feeling more and more comfortable with being around strangers, sitting right next to them within a few feet, and just enjoying their popcorn, drinking their drinks, laughing, having a good time. That's what it was going to take for the movies to come back. So I started to think, like, what are some of the indicators that we can look for to see if the box office is ready to return and explode? So I took a peek here, and one of the biggest indicators that I think of is, okay, let's kind of look at what the box office was doing before the pandemic and then what it's doing now. And then from those comparisons, we can kind of tell where we're trending. So this is the February box office results. This is on Box Office Mojo. And you can see, before the pandemic, now, even 2020, because the shutdowns really didn't start in March. So even in 2020, you can see that, okay, box office usually does around $600 million in February. You got some other dates here. 2018 was an outlier, of course, because of Black Panther, but mostly it's like, okay, about 700, maybe 800 here and there, but mostly 700,000 or 700 million is what we normally would see in a general February. This year, it shows right there, we're at 365. So that tells you, okay, box office is still a little bit down from what it normally is. All right. And even though it had a good, solid movie like Uncharted, still lower than what we're normally used to seeing from February. All right. So let's check out March. Okay. So March, kind of same thing, right? You see March and it's like, okay, upper, a little bit better than February, right? We're usually talking in the $900 million ranges. You got some bigger years, maybe 800 million in some of the down years, going back here, prices were a little bit different, but you can kind of see just in general, from the last 5 years before the pandemic hit, around 800, 900 million. And so right now we're sitting at 555. Now, we're not done with March yet, but I doubt we're going to make up another $400 million in the next, few days. But nevertheless, you can see that we're still a little bit off. So what does this mean? I think, and, also you can check out the number of releases. Far fewer releases, in comparisons to previous years. It was the exact same thing with February. February had 77 releases compared to movies in the hundreds. And so what you're seeing is that theaters are, not quite back. Studios are not dropping the movies as fast and as frequent. Very few releases in the month. So that tells me that, people are still kind of hesitating. So what did we need? We needed a movie that showed great results like the Lost City. Lost City doing very well in the box office. Let's go ahead and check that out. So The Lost City doing 34 million worldwide, $31 million domestically, about 3.7 million internationally. Now, I'm not sure if it's released everywhere it's going to release. It probably hasn't. So this international number, I think, is going to go up quite a bit. And, even with that being said, I think that this is a pretty solid beginning for this film. If you remember, I thought the movie would do about, somewhere in the neighborhood of $30 million, $29 to $30 million, opening weekend. So it's already exceeded my expectations, which is good news. So that means down the line, if we continue to see small drops for this film where it doesn't drop heavily, it's going to make its money back really quickly. But remember, we talked about the films that are coming ahead of it. We do have a lot. We're going to go over that in a minute. But first, let's go ahead and look at the numbers for the box office as it stands right now. All right, so here's the top 10 that we have for the weekend. First film, of course, like we said, The Lost City, sitting at $31 million, followed by The Batman, coming in second at $20.5 million. RRR, this is like an Indian film. I'm loving to see, by the way, a lot of films coming from foreign countries that are really making noise. I love seeing it. RRR, it looks like it's kind of like a biopic, kind of like a historical action film. It looks really good. Like, I'm really interested in seeing this a lot. Like, I watched the trailer for it because I didn't know anything about this movie. I saw this and I was like, whoa, okay, I can see why this thing is doing well in the box office. It sits at 9.5 million. Uncharted still hanging in there in the top 5 with $5 million, followed by Jujutsu Kaisen 0, which did 4.5 million. All right, and then the second half of the top 10, we have X at 2.2, Dog 2.1, Spider-Man No Way Home still hanging in there with 2 million, Sing at 1.2, and then finally Infinite Storm at 751K. All right, next we look at the week over week drops. This is just the top 5 of the top 10 and how those drops looked. All right, so we got the Batman, of course, still dropping really, really nice. Like, this is still a very, very good weekend. And I think it's going to get challenged next weekend a little bit with Morbius coming out, because those are two superhero films. I think a lot of folks that have seen the Batman or wanted to see the Batman have seen it. And I think those numbers, so watch for a big drop next week with the Batman. I think that's going to be the week that it finally takes a big stumble, but it still made a ton of money. As you can see, 672 million at the worldwide box office. They're still calculating and bringing in a lot of numbers from overseas, so we'll probably won't know what the final results will be until maybe towards the end of April. But anyway, Uncharted still doing well at 5 million. It's at 357 million worldwide. We got Jujutsu Kaisen 0 at 4.5 million. A 69% drop. Big drop for that film, but that was to also be expected, because the majority of people, especially in the domestic audiences that wanted to see this, have already seen it. And so, yeah, it was going to get a very, very big drop. But look at its overall number, $144 million worldwide. That is phenomenal for this film. X at 2.2 million had a 47% drop, now at 8.6 million worldwide. And then Dog still chugging along, doing really, really good numbers. You know, I think Channing Tatum's, you know, star power is starting to rise up a little bit more, especially with The Lost City and now this film. He's good in these smaller films where his comedic side can start to show, and you're looking at it right there, $68 million. That's pretty good for this movie. All right, so the next thing I wanted to look at is just the total worldwide numbers for the top 10. So this is the top 10 overall worldwide. And like I said, good to see some foreign films. There's a couple of foreign films in here, Watergate Bridge, Too Cool to Kill, and Nights of You. Foreign films, but eventually I think as we're getting into the summer months, April's got a lot of heavy hitters. That's going to bump past some of these. But you can see, like, just from the numbers, you know, like we still have Marry Me at 49 million sitting in the top 10. And we're almost 3 months into 2022. So we still have $50 million films in the top 10. That tells you that folks really haven't come back to the movies, even on a worldwide basis. But I do think that probably at the end of this month, or excuse me, at the end of April, we're going to see a drastically different top 10. Like, a lot of these films are going to get washed out. We got films like Morbius. We got some cartoons coming up, The Bad Guys. That looks like an interesting kids film. We have Fantastic Beasts, we have Sonic, we have Ambulance. Those movies are going to do crazy numbers. So I do think that by the time we get through with the month of April, yeah, all of these films are probably going to, you know, be washed away. We'll still have Batman, Uncharted, you know, maybe Scream, maybe it'll be sitting down towards the bottom. But yeah, a lot of these films are going to be gone. All right, so now the next question is, what's happening for the following week, and what can we expect as far as a drop for The Lost City? All right, and then as you can see, this is the release schedule coming up. So yeah, we know that Morbius, that's going to be the biggest release. It's, you know, it's not getting great word of mouth right now, and it hasn't even come out yet, but nevertheless, I think that that's going to be a very, very big movie. It's going to have a really, really solid opening weekend, and it's definitely going to cut into some of the Lost City's box office. Now, following that weekend, and remember, if you go back to the box office prediction that we did for the Lost City, we saw that the movies that are going to be coming up, like Sonic 2, you know, that's coming up on April the 8th. Ambulance is another one that's going to get in its way. You got Fantastic Beasts, The Secret of Dumbledore. That's dropping 2 weeks from now on April 15th. So that, or 3 weeks from now, but 2 weeks from next week. So that's going to be huge. I think that those two movies, Sonic, Fantastic Beasts, that's going to really crowd out. And now the theaters are going to start opening up. So the question is, will people still come to see The Lost City? You know, it's like we don't have to pick and choose. You know, oh, this is only one film. We can go and see whatever we want to see. Is that going to have an effect on The Lost City? Clearly it will have some of an effect, but how much of an effect? The word of mouth. Remember what I told you, the word of mouth is going to be very, very, very important if people are going to see this a second and a third time. And so far, you know, when you look at the film, this is Rotten Tomatoes. And so far, when you look at it, hey, it's doing pretty good, right? 76%. 85% on the audience score, not bad. Now, I did say with the audience score, sometimes when it dips below 90, you kind of get questionable. But still, 85% is a good score. 76% for the critics. Hey, you can't do much better than that in terms of critical reaction. Now, how are people talking to each other? Are people saying, hey, man, you need to go see The Lost City? That is a great movie. Facebook, you go to there and people are talking, hey, man, I saw The Lost City. It was fantastic. I had a great time. I loved it. You go to Twitter and you hear the feedback there. You start looking at social media a little bit to kind of gauge where things are at, but it's really the one-to-one conversations that people are having. You know, is this a good movie? Is this worth my time? So we'll see what happens. I'm going to do a box office prediction for Morbius. That's going to come up this week, so keep your eye out for that. But that'll do it for the box office breakdown. I want to thank everybody for watching. I do appreciate it. Yeah, and thank you also for the folks that have wished me happy birthday. Also, all the new subscribers. I'm seeing you guys starting to trickle in. The subscriber count is piling up, so I definitely want to thank you guys. I really appreciate the support. All right, that'll do it. Thanks for watching. See you next time.